Hi, Wiz and Pippy here, and in today's video we're talking far too much about Shadowheart, her character, and why the heck she is so loved. I mean, it certainly helps that you meet her quite quickly, and her story has a lot to do with the events of the game, but there's more, a lot more. Shadowheart is incredibly relatable, and as an extension, very sympathetic. And that sympathetic nature stems from identity, and everyone's struggle with it, as well as how her story is told. So sit back, relax, and let me regale you with a bit of Jungian psychology and archetypal literary criticism. So for this video, I'm going to have to enter the world of Baldur's Gate 3. Pippy has gotten this set up for me, so let's just hop in. Whoa! All right, we're here. Wait, why am I a kobold? And why am I a sorcerer? Pippy, what did you do? Pippy, when I get out of here. Well, first we'll have to complete the video, so let's get started. I would never be a nepo baby sorcerer.
You! Get me out of this taxi!
And we'll of course start with the character herself, Shadowheart, whom we first meet when we rescue her from the Nautiloid pod at the beginning of the game. From the start, it's clear that there's tension between her and Lae'zel, and we quickly realize that Shadowheart is hiding something, what we learn to be the Astral Prism, a powerful Githyanki artifact. Though we can question her about it, she's evasive and prefers to keep its significance to herself. As we escape the Nautiloid and begin our adventure to Baldur's Gate, it becomes apparent that Shadowheart's reluctance to share is a recurring theme. So, the player's first experiences with Shadowheart aren't exactly friendly, but they are intriguing. We can quickly make assumptions about Shadowheart: cold, closed off, kinda rude.
But I'm also God's favorite princess and the most interesting girl in the world.
Soon we learn that Shadowheart is a cleric of Shar, the Lady of Loss. You know, very obviously no good, very bad god, or at least pretty nihilistic in a way that ruins people's lives for the benefit of the lady. Well, okay, so not good. It's hard to be a Sharan apologist, okay? But that's not the whole picture we see of Shadowheart. We get glimpses of something else. Shadowheart approves of generally good stuff, like when you save Arabella from Kaga, or when you persuade the goblins at the windmill to leave without combat. Sure, she also approves of stuff you'd expect from an evil-aligned character, but also ones you wouldn't. As you travel with Shadowheart through Act 1, she gradually reveals more about herself, including her allegiance to Shar and her lack of clear memories. One of the few she does recall is being chased by a wolf as a child, a traumatic experience that she believes is the source of her fear of wolves. If you pass a religion check during this conversation, you can draw a connection between this memory and a Selûnite ritual, pointing out that she's wearing a moonstone, a symbol of Selûne. Shadowheart, of course, rejects this, and this is because it's directly challenging to her identity.
Something that reminded me of my faith, my mission. I felt something rise within me, like my blood was on fire. Then it passed.
Shadowheart's story is one that we can all relate to and embrace the tragedy of. Throughout the story, Shadowheart is trying to answer a single question: who am I? It's one that everyone has struggled with, particularly in adolescence. And typically, each person has some ability to answer that question, even if they are currently going through a turbulent phase in the forming of their identity. You can turn inwards, look upon your past experiences, past actions, your values, and what you want to stand for, and come up with an answer to who you are, a sense of identity. In Shadowheart's case, she is largely incapable of answering that question. Her sense of identity is based on fragments of her memory, but mostly on what she has been told by the Sharan cult and Lady Viconia, the leader of her cloister. These external influences have shaped her self-perception, and because they are the only sources of identity she has, she clings to them, even when they cause her great pain. This is symbolized by the mysterious Sharan wound on her hand, which occasionally inflicts intense pain and discomfort. Despite this suffering, Shadowheart justifies her adherence to Shar by interpreting the pain from the wound as part of her training, believing it only manifests when she strays too far from the Sharan path. She rationalizes this discomfort as a necessary sacrifice, a sign that she's being disciplined for her own good. This coping mechanism reveals how deeply she has internalized the identity imposed on her, filling in the gaps with positive spins to maintain her self-concept. She does this because, when who you think you are does not match who you feel you are, it is distressing. In Shadowheart's case, her ideal self is that of Shar's devoted champion, but there is a dissonance that she cannot ignore, a feeling that she is meant to be someone else. Bubbling up just below the surface of her consciousness, she feels she is someone who she cannot remember being. Genevieve Hollowleaf, child of Selûne. This unrecognized self tugs at her consciousness, creating an internal conflict that is at the heart of her character's struggle. A deeper understanding of Shadowheart's character can be gained through the lens of Carl Jung's concept of the persona. Jung described the persona as the mask or facade that an individual presents to the world, a social role adopted to protect oneself and fit into societal expectations. While the persona can help navigate various social situations, it can also obscure the true self beneath it. Essentially, the persona is the version of oneself projected in a given context to conform, connect, or achieve specific social goals. This contrasts with the authentic self, which represents who a person truly is beneath the social masks they wear, their ground truth. We all adapt our persona to different environments, perhaps presenting ourselves differently among close friends versus a family gathering. This adaptation is similar to the concept of code switching, where individuals adjust their behavior, language, or expressions to align with the social norms of a particular group. For Shadowheart, the persona she often presents is that of Shar's champion. It's crucial to remember that her society isn't Baldur's Gate, or the familiar communities of the other characters. Her society is the cult of Shar, and she strives to embody its values. She desperately wants to be Shar's chosen champion, and that is the identity she clings to and aspires toward. More importantly, Shadowheart wants to belong, to find acceptance within Shar's society. This longing to fit in and be part of something greater explains her seemingly contradictory behavior. She projects the persona of Shar's champion because that's who she believes she should be, yet her true self, the gentle Genevieve, who loves flowers and animals, still lingers. Even without her memories, this authentic self shines through, like moonlight on a dark night, subtly illuminating the shadowed landscape of her identity. Through Act 1 of the game, we are met with a mysterious and sometimes harsh Shadowheart who purports to be a champion of Shar, but that we can see is much more than that. By the time you enter Act 2, Shadowheart might seem like she's questioning her faith. However, this next phase of the game takes place in the Shadow-Cursed Lands, an area that is cursed by Shar, and those who enter it are sapped of their life force. Shadowheart possesses some immunity to the curse, and takes that as a sign that her lady is truly shepherding her. This idea is reinforced when the Great Quest takes the party to the Gauntlet of Shar, a proving ground for Dark Justiciars. By this point in the game, especially if you have visited the Grimforge, you have likely learned that Shadowheart wishes to become a Dark Justiciar. Justiciars are the elite of the Sharan cult. They possess the most zeal and the greatest martial prowess of Shar's followers, and thus are afforded special privilege and closeness to the Lady of Loss. Shadowheart, of course, views this as a great privilege, and it gives her newfound faith as she insists upon completing the gauntlet and becoming a Justiciar. And so, we help Shadowheart complete the gauntlet. First, the soft step trial, a stealth challenge, a self-same trial, challenge to conquer oneself, and the faith step trial, a challenge to put your faith in darkness. Once the gauntlet is complete, Shadowheart requests that we help her obtain the Spear of Night in the Silent Library, the purported penultimate step to taking her place as a Justiciar. Once we solve the riddle, what can silence the Night Song, Shadowheart can claim the Dark Justiciar armor and the Spear of Night, which she may use to carry out her lady's will. We next ascend to the bowels of the gauntlet and to a portal to the Shadowfell. Shadowheart gives a final prayer to Shar, and we enter the Shadowfell, where we discover what, or rather who, the Night Song really is. An Aasimar woman named Dame Elin, who is a daughter of Selûne, the arch-rival of Shar, and thus an enemy to any who follow her. After you clear the way for Shadowheart to enact Shar's will, she steps forth with the Spear of Night in hand, ready to pierce the heart of Dame Elin. But a moment of hesitation. Shadowheart looks to the party and looks inward. At the threshold of achieving her goal of becoming ever closer to the Lady of Loss, she hesitates, has a crisis of faith, and faces a fork in the road. One path, the killing of Dame Elin, and Shadowheart affirms her place as the champion of Shar. The other, she spares Elin, and embraces the alternative that she is someone else, the antithesis of Shar's champion, a champion of Selûne. In this moment, Shadowheart, for seemingly the first time in her life, gets to answer the question, who am I? Earlier, I teased the second reason to why Shadowheart resonates with people, and I believe that second reason is the fact that she's going on the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a narrative structure that outlines a protagonist's adventure, personal growth, and transformation. Popularized by Joseph Campbell in his work The Hero with a Thousand Faces, it describes a series of stages that a hero typically goes through, from the ordinary world to the unknown, where they face trials, enemies, and allies, and a climactic ordeal that tests their character. After achieving victory or revelation, the hero returns to their ordinary world, often with newfound wisdom, strength, or power that benefits their community. This structure is prevalent in myths, literature, and modern storytelling because it resonates with universal themes of growth, struggle, and self-discovery, reflecting the internal and external conflicts we all experience in our lives. From Luke Skywalker to Frodo Baggins to Harry Potter and Simba, one of your favorite characters in fiction has gone on the hero's journey. For Shadowheart, the hero's journey begins when she leaves her cloister on her mission to obtain the Astral Prism. You can learn in Act 3 of the game that Lady Viconia is wary of the rise of the Cult of the Absolute, the main antagonists of the game. Viconia learns that the Absolute is pursuing a mysterious artifact that can purportedly be used against the Absolute. The ever-judicious Viconia orders a strike force that includes Shadowheart to attack the Githyanki in possession of the mysterious artifact, which of course turns out to be the Astral Prism. Thus, our hero, Shadowheart, sets out on a dangerous mission, leaving her ordinary and relatively safe world of the Cloister and Baldur's Gate. Shadowheart is motivated by the external approval of and performing for Shar and her cult society. Her mission is a costly success. She is able to obtain the prism, but remains as the only survivor. Furthermore, she's captured and tadpoled. In this instance, her perfect world is shattered, and she needs assistance from allies to continue on. Those allies are typically our player character and Lae'zel, who ends up saving her from her pod. Shadowheart has gathered allies and escaped the Nautiloid. She's the only person left on her mission, but she has the Astral Prism, some new allies, and is resolute to make it back to Baldur's Gate. She answers the call to adventure and continues on the journey with the party. As she continues to adventure, Shadowheart is given small successes when she is able to continue into the Shadowlands and is given some immunity to the curse or even encounter clues and remnants of the Dark Justiciars. And along the way is given reasons to question if what she's doing is truly what she wants, and who she truly is. Shadowheart is given a set of trials at the Gauntlet of Shar. She continues to pursue her mission and status as a Dark Justiciar. The next phase of her journey is to make a choice, to awaken or rebel. This phase decides if the hero faces victory or failure in the end. Victory, and the hero achieves wholeness and becomes even more of what they are, discarding what is holding them back from achieving their ultimate goal in actualization. Which brings us back to the silencing of the Night Song, with Shadowheart tasked with killing Dame Elin. A fork in the road, Shadowheart chooses one path or the other, to awaken as Shar's champion and achieve victory, or rebel, embrace being a daughter of Selûne, and find failure. So, you might be yelling at the screen right now, especially if you're familiar with the hero's journey, and you might have noticed that what we consider the evil path for Shadowheart, killing Dame Elin, and becoming the chosen of Shar, is what I'm calling the victory path for the hero's journey. Heroes aren't supposed to be evil, right? Luke Skywalker chooses to awaken, and Anakin Skywalker chooses to rebel. And guess which one of those characters are the big bad? Right, of course. But for Shadowheart, a devout follower of Shar who aspires to become a Dark Justiciar and ultimately the champion of Shar, this is the good ending. But you might not entirely buy into that, especially since the traditional hero's journey doesn't quite account for the Selûnite path. And this is where things get a little nuanced, because I believe the Selûnite path follows a slightly different framework. Earlier, I mentioned how Joseph Campbell popularized the hero's journey. Well, another individual, Maureen Murdoch, argued that it doesn't accurately reflect the female experience. In response, Murdoch crafted an alternate framework, the heroine's journey. A psychoanalyst by trade, Murdoch developed this model through her work with women in therapy, and it weaves in the unique cultural pressures that women often face. Men will face pressure to perform, to provide, and to pursue greater power while holding on to the power that they already possess. So the hero's journey is about a hero doing that, facing those pressures to perform, realizing that what he's pursuing may not be what he truly wants, and facing trials where the hero will often need to give up some of their held power to achieve their true goals. Likewise, the cultural pressures for women are just as demanding, if not more so. The demand to adhere to traditional and heteronormative ideals of family caretaker and homemaker, as well as the world being a more dangerous place for women, who more often face the prospect of violence in their everyday lives. The heroine's journey more often shows the heroine as being unsupported by society, and taking on more trials that are inward-facing, as opposed to the masculine hero who goes out and conquers. In both cases, the protagonist needs to achieve some measure of actualization to achieve their ultimate goal, and that includes reconciling of both masculine and feminine natures. Because every person who becomes their greatest self possesses both traditionally feminine and traditionally masculine traits, disregarding the false binary of gender. This isn't to say that a character's gender has anything to do with what or which kind of journey they are on, just a reflection upon how the hero's journey has traditionally been told with a male voice, and how the heroine's journey attempts to remedy that. For Shadowheart, her heroine's journey begins with her separation from the feminine, rejecting the nurturing, compassionate aspects often associated with the feminine identity. As a devout follower of Shar, the goddess of darkness and loss, she is trained to suppress emotions and reject vulnerability. She embodies Shar's ideas of coldness and detachment, rejecting anything else. The feminine symbolism of Selûne, and outright being hostile to anything Selûnite, acts as an effective metaphor. A step further, Char's teachings align with the traditional masculine traits of strength, control, and power over emotions. Shadowheart, in her quest to become a Dark Justiciar, takes on this mindset. She seeks validation and strength through the powers Char promises, identifying with these traits to protect herself from vulnerability. Along the way, she forms bonds with companions, but her trust is hard-earned. And throughout the game, Shadowheart faces a series of trials, both external and internal. Externally, she must prove herself to Char and navigate the deadly challenges in her path. Internally, she grapples with the doubts and questions about her true self, particularly as memories from her childhood resurface and her past with Selûne comes to light. These trials force her to confront the rigid identity she's built and challenge her loyalty to Char. As Shadowheart gets closer to her goal of becoming a Dark Justiciar, she begins to question the path she's on. This is where the narrative diverges, as the player can either push her further into Char's cold embrace, or help her realize that her path is a betrayal of her true self. If she begins to reject Char's doctrine, she is ultimately forced to confront the darker aspects of herself, and the emptiness that comes from abandoning her own vulnerability. This marks a deep descent into her psyche, where she must reckon with the pain and loss that have defined her life. And that brings us back to the decision. And this time, Shadowheart is going to spare Dame Aelin, rejecting Char and embracing the Selûnite path. She begins to reconnect with the compassionate, nurturing side of herself that she had long buried. This isn't about weakness, but about integrating the aspects of herself that she had once viewed as vulnerabilities. She reclaims her sense of self by embracing love, empathy, and healing, traits often linked with the feminine in traditional storytelling. This marks a major turning point in her journey toward self-acceptance and wholeness. The climax of Shadowheart's arc involves reconciling the different aspects of her identity. The challenge is to balance the strength and independence she's learned with the compassion and vulnerability that she had repressed. If she follows the Selûnite path, this integration leads to healing, not just herself, but for others as well. She becomes a more complete version of herself, balancing the power she sought from Char with the empathy and care she rediscovers through Selûne. In the heroine's journey, the protagonist often returns to the world with a new understanding of self. If Shadowheart embraces Selûne, she returns to the world no longer at war with herself, embodying the integrated person who has reclaimed her past and embraced her future. In Shadowheart's journey, the tension between Char and Selûne represents a classic heroine's journey struggle between rejecting and embracing her deeper self. Her journey is one of personal self-discovery, healing, and integration, making her a powerful example of a heroine navigating the internal struggles of identity. And while this decision is largely the climax of Shadowheart's story, it is not the end.
I don't understand.
Only we who seek your embrace remain.
What will come now, I wonder?
After Shadowheart's decision to kill or spare Dame Aelin, she's obligated to return to her Sharn cloister in Baldur's Gate. Motivated either by Char's command to clear the cloister, as Viconia seemed to have earned the lady's ire, or informed by Aelin that her parents were not only still alive, but held captive there. This return functions as the return step in the hero and heroine's journey. Shadowheart has, at this point, fully claimed her identity, and seeks to solidify her new status and world. As Char's champion, Shadowheart aims to fully outwardly conquer her past by defeating and claiming power over Viconia, who has tormented her and prevented her from becoming a Dark Justiciar. And as a final step and test for Shadowheart, she is ordered to slay her captive parents. This is essentially another opportunity to reject Char, and this choice is largely a revisitation of the Dame Aelin decision. Shadowheart is revisiting the decision to awaken or rebel. Shadowheart can turn her back on Char, perhaps killing her parents is a bridge too far for her, and her identity and purpose would be shattered once again. If Shadowheart stays resolute and kills her parents, she is fully embraced by Char as her champion, and takes Viconia's place. Char's plan to turn a child of Selûne to darkness is complete, and Shadowheart's identity is solidified, and her hero's journey is at an end, though with a less happy ending than usual. In the case that Shadowheart spared Aelin and embraced her past as a follower of Selûne, Shadowheart will revisit the cloister with the express purpose of saving her parents. She will of course enter into combat and will have to defeat Viconia and her supporters to gain access to her parents. Once she does, she is faced with a similar, but different choice. Shadowheart may choose to free herself from Char's influence completely by removing the Sharn wound that frequently torments her, but at the expense of her parents' lives. However, Shadowheart may choose to keep the wound and spare her parents. In this instance, Shadowheart can reclaim a part of her lost childhood and spend what time her parents have left with them, And I don't think there's really a good, bad, right or wrong decision here, but this is what Shadowheart's father has to say on the matter.
You've saved us. Now save yourself. You'll be out of Shah's reach, and we'll be at peace.
But I only just found you again after all this time. I can't lose you again.
We'll still be with you. By the Moon Maiden's grace, we'll never be far. Please, Jennifer.
And in the case where Shadowheart follows through with her father's wishes, she looks to the future, unsure of her past, but assured that she is loved, that she is who she is, and that she is in full control of herself and her identity. None of Shadowheart's endings are necessarily happy. She either falls into the darkness of Shar, regains her parents only to lose them again, or manages to reunite with them and reclaim a part of her past, but at the cost of living with the pain Shar inflicted upon her. Each ending is bittersweet, but depending on your perspective, you might find one ending more sweet than bitter. This is a part of Shadowheart's tragic and sympathetic nature, a reflection of the complexities of healing from trauma and abuse. There's definitely more to say there about abuse and identity, but I do not wish to belabor the end of this video any longer. Shadowheart can embrace the memories of her parents and the faith of Selûne, choosing to find strength in reclaiming her lost identity. However, this comes with the burden of confronting her years of devotion to Shar and the emotional scars of the goddess's manipulation. Alternatively, she can fall deeper into the shadow of Shar, rejecting the past in favor of power or emotional numbness, which offers a false sense of security, but ultimately deepens her wounds. No matter what choice you guide her to, Shadowheart's story serves as a stark metaphor for the healing process. It's never linear, and there are no perfect resolutions. Healing, much like Shadowheart's journey, often involves accepting a future that blends pain with growth, and the scars of the past linger. Shadowheart's journey reveals the reality that healing doesn't mean erasing trauma, it means learning how to live with it.
Besides, Shadowheart still suits me. Even better than before, perhaps. You can't cast a shadow without some light.